loyalty to Steve, and we're seeing that play out now. Obviously, when you're watching, you look and you're like, well, yeah, of course we know Steve Rogers. That's Captain America. This guy's not it. I mean, yeah, he's not any match for these super soldiers, and that's something that if we had, if Captain America, the real one, were around, we'd say, oh yeah, you know what? I think I can believe that he would go out and be able to at least match some of them, but you don't kind of feel that right away with him. But kind of like what you said, this is building up for something more, because we'll get into it with the villain that's been teased here the last few episodes. But there is, if you're a comic book reader, and I did my research. Like I said before, I'm not a comic book reader, but I did do my research. There is a connection between all three of them, and that's something that will be interesting to see how that plays out over the course of the next few episodes. But go ahead.
I was going to say, well, do you know? I don't know if they're gonna do it at all, but did you do since we're like just going through it and like talking about the comic connections? I don't know if he's gonna be in any more episodes, but Joaquin Torres.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you know who that is in the comics?
He becomes the Falcon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, eventually.
Right? Yes, eventually.
Yes, but I don't know if he's going to be in any more of this show. But it's definitely a nod. Yeah,
they kind of laid that foundation a little bit. Obviously, you only have so much time to focus on.
They're very obviously leading into Young Avengers.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're going to get him back. He'll be back. Mm-hmm. Because I think the thing what this is leading to, it's leading to just Captain America and him dropping the Falcon persona, and then the Winter Soldier being dropped and him becoming the White Wolf.
Yeah, and which, excuse me, this is all about setting up the future, would set up potential more story arcs and storylines. But yeah, I'm glad you actually brought that up, because I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm glad we want to bring as much information and thoughtful discussion here to this podcast as much as we can. So that's certainly someone to keep an eye on, because, well, the last we saw him, if I'm not mistaken, was when he was quote unquote infiltrating the Flag Smashers, because he got beat up and kind of got knocked around, and I'm pretty sure that's the last time we've seen him, and that was episode 2, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so obviously he's kind of out of sight.
I don't think we saw him last episode.
No, because this was more about, focusing on like Zemo and obviously, Zemo. We'll get to Zemo here in a second, but obviously focusing on that side of things, and so yeah, maybe that's something that people will kind of forget, and then he'll reemerge at some point later in this run here in the second half. So yeah, let's shift over to episode 3, because I made mention of this villain, the quote unquote power broker, that has been kind of teased here the last few weeks, last few episodes, and I think I read somewhere it made its first mention in the actual end credits of episode 1, where it was just an image of what people assume was some super serum and, a plate with Power Broker on it. So there was a very brief mention, and I didn't notice it at first. I had to read it elsewhere. But obviously he is the supposed power behind all of this, and obviously we learn a little bit more about him in this episode.
Power Broker, really? Every kingdom needs its king. Let's just pray we stay under his radar.
Do you know him?
Only by reputation. In Madripoor, he's judge, jury, and executioner.
So, in like I said, I did my research. In the comics, this is a guy named Curtis Jackson, and no, I know what you're thinking. It's not 50 Cent. Okay? This is just Curtis with 2 S's, I believe. Curtis Jackson, and like I said, I made mention earlier to a connection to everyone, and he was in the comics. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If you know, if anyone out there knows, tell me later, I guess. He was the one who gave John Walker and Battlestar their quote unquote powers in the comic. Now, I don't necessarily in the episode or in the series so far, they've kind of we saw it in episode 2. They focused on John Walker's natural gifts and abilities. His super strength and everything like that. Not super serum, but apparently just the incredible gifts of an athlete. And we kind of see, like, I don't know about you, but I don't see any abnormal strength out of him when watching. And again, maybe this is just me not seeing it right. But like, especially in episode 2 where they're fighting the Flag Smashers. Yeah, he, seems to be all right when he gets thrown through a windshield of a car off the back of a 18-wheeler. But for the most part, I didn't see him as anything other than just a strong guy. You know what I mean? So I don't know if they're going to go with him being, you talk about him becoming the antagonist. I don't know if they're going to go with that angle of him being some sort of quote unquote actual super soldier.
Sorry. They set it up to him just being like a fit dude, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they set it up in the start. But no, he eventually becomes U.S. agent and is I believe is a villain at some point in the comics. But I don't know how much of it. I think we could end up seeing him break and then getting the serum at some point.
Mm-hmm. That could be.
Yeah.
Well, because
yeah, and even if he's not a villain in this one,
mm-hmm.
In this show, it's another future villain. Like I said, they're setting up for Young Avengers, like in episode 2, bringing in Isaiah Bradley and then Eli Bradley, who is then Patriot, who is then eventually just Captain America, basically.
Yeah, and exactly. Like, I feel like these characters are too good to be one-off characters. You know what I'm saying?
Just like homages to the comics, basically.
Well, because if anyone knows, Wyatt Russell actually, I'm sure a lot of people know the tidbit, actually tried to get the original Captain America role, and now we look at him as Captain America light, but in reality, hey, it could have been him and not Chris Evans. But so anyways, that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And again, this could be setting up things long term. But with the clip I played, that was from the the fun club scene, and if there's one GIF that's going to come out of all this, it's Zemo dancing. I've already seen it a few times, so
all over. I love it.
Well, I relate so much to it because, well, hey, it's kind of what I look like when I'm dancing. I don't think I look like that, but I've seen footage. They talk about the power broker. We don't know who it is. We don't know necessarily. We know what their motivation or what they're doing. They're creating these super soldiers. To what ends is that information available? I don't think it's necessarily there. Maybe I missed it, but the real question is, who is it? Now, we see the return of Sharon Carter in this episode. Obviously, she's been persona non grata since the Accords, Sokovia Accords, back in obviously the Civil War movie, and she was blipped away and came back and has this really pessimistic, to say the least, outlook on everything. But she seems to be a popular choice among fans and certainly writers out there to potentially be this quote-unquote power broker. What are your thoughts? Do you believe in that? Do you have any sort of inkling as to who it could be? And, we got to get the reveal soon. You got to imagine that's going to happen.
Yeah, we're halfway through.
Yeah, 3 episodes left.
I feel like it might be too obvious to be her.
Yeah.
Because I mean, but also it probably just is setting up to be her. If we learned anything from WandaVision, they're not necessarily trying to hide everything in the smallest possible details. But because other than that, what other reason really is there for Sharon Carter to be in the show other than just to be awesome? And a villain now. I mean, she is not a good person anymore, but it's not necessarily her fault. I don't know. It's there's, she's in that gray area.
Well, I can certainly see her as a character that would go bad if the situation called for it. You know what I mean? You look at her, you look at her mother.
She also is still trying to get pardoned.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe, I don't know if she was setting up, but that also might just be like, oh, yeah, no, give me the pardon or whatever.
Well, she could be setting it up to play the hero, though. If she is this quote unquote power broker and she, quote unquote saves or helps, fix this problem, that might help lead to a pardon. So, maybe this is just a long con on her part, or it's just Zemo. Maybe it's Zemo. Maybe it's just been Zemo the whole time. Maybe we'll get another catchy jingle at the end of this series.
I don't know if it would be Zemo, right? Because wasn't his whole thing he wanted to get rid of superheroes and stuff like that?
Yeah, but I just don't trust him. You know what I mean? Like, he's sitting there talking about Machiavelli, and I'm just like...
But I love Zemo.
Yeah, I love him too. Don't get me wrong, but if my instincts are telling me, like, I don't know if I trust this guy. I mean, come on, it's there's got to be, I don't know. Those two obviously are the prime candidates. Kind of like what you said. I mean, sometimes we overthink things. Like, there's no way it's going to be as obvious as Sharon Carter, but sometimes it is, and sometimes that's the right way to go. And because here's the thing. I don't know necessarily if I want them to, especially with only 3 episodes left, all of a sudden introduce this brand new character. Maybe it's, okay, I take that back because all of a sudden I think back to Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and the end credits, and you see Thanos for the first time. But at that point, you kind of knew it was leading up to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you get your first glimpse, and it was a very, we knew more movies were coming out, all that stuff. We don't necessarily know what's happening post Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I'm kind of hesitant to see just a random new character come in and play this villain. So my instinct is telling me it's someone we've already seen. Maybe it's, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it's Jeff Goldblum. I don't know. Maybe he's the power broker, and he's he's been wandering since he left Sakaar, and who knows how old he is now. But you know what I'm saying. Like, who knows? But my instinct tells me it's probably one of those two. And to overthink it and to think otherwise might be doing a little bit more damage than just thinking, okay, it's probably just this.
Yeah, it's probably just Sharon Carter, but it could be anybody. Maybe it's Bucky. Who knows? It could be anyone.
Yeah, Bucky.
Hi.
I love that. Hi. I'm gonna get a lot of use out of that one. I'll tell you that much. But
do we need to talk about the last scene?
Oh yeah, of course.
The last scene of episode 3. First, I want to shout out. I want to shout out. I loved episode 3. Episode 3, I thought was the best episode by far, so far.
I enjoyed it a lot. I think you started to see a lot more. We got the basic character plot layout the first couple episodes. We got to kind of introduce to the main players, but this was Bucky and this was Sam, and this was obviously having Zemo involved helped. But yeah, I agree with you. It was my favorite of the 3. I think it's gotten progressively better, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. And so we see Bucky break off, and I was like, "Hey, yeah, I'll talk to you in a little bit." And then he starts picking up the beads, and I'm like, "Oh, that looks like Wakanda."
Yeah.
And then, but I was like, I wasn't even thinking about it. And then, of course, he goes, and then you hear the drums, which immediate hype, and then we see Ao from Wakanda, and she says that they are there for Zemo, and I can't wait to see what this is about.
And like you said, maybe it was just because of what Bucky heard or saw. He didn't seem too surprised, and not so much like, even if he saw that, I still feel like he would have been a little bit more surprised than he let on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so I feel like he knows a little bit more about something than what we expect out of Bucky.
Oh, and just as a refresher